and gentlemen, we are here for another great overall overtime. And you hear the sounds of the greatest showman. We are getting this ready right now with the one and only, the incredible Christina Unkel. And this is her favorite song right here as we get this going over overtime on Monday.
It's freedom, it's flying open. Hey. It's a picture in the pulpit and your blind devotion.
Yes.
There's something breaking at the brick.
Give a round of applause. Round of applause. Great Christina Unkel, ladies and gentlemen. Give her a round of applause. She is here live and direct with us here for overall overtime here in the morning. Live on Spotify, Green Room, and gonna be on the Bleav Network with that. Christina, how are you doing on this whole Monday?
It's Monday morning. I am excited, full of energy. Just got my workout in, cup of coffee, greatest showman, here with Andrew Jones. Let's go. It's a good day.
Oh my goodness, that is just that's worth a full ding right there, because she's coming with that positive energy that has made her a whole rising star, not only in the media world, but being one of our better referees and a prodigy referee, as you have documented this story with great colleagues like Grant Wall, a few other shows with it. At age 10 is when the impetus for you to become a referee and on the journey that you have become on came into place when you had your coach, Bob Harris, chastise you while you were playing soccer with that. At that moment, what led to the sense for you to say, you know what, this could really stick for me right now at age 10?
That's a great question, because it didn't at age 10. I mean, the only reason I started officiating was I was kind of like everyone else. I was just popping off at the referee. And if you don't know the laws of the game, and my coach knew them, he's like, you just sound incompetent. Like, stop yelling if you don't know what you're talking about, which is why I struggle sitting on the fan section half the time, because I'm like, sweet Lord, it's not that. But, a great question, because none of this really stuck with me until I was about 15, 16 years old. I was doing it. It's great pocket money back in the day. You'd earn about $100 on a weekend, which was astronomical for someone who couldn't even work technically. But where it really stuck was when I would start getting, I love the game, love being at the fields. I would be there from literally, my practices would start at 5 and I would be there till 10, 11 o'clock at night. But where it really stuck was it allowed me to see another side of the game, and it allowed me to basically continue to challenge myself. And when I started at the age of 15, 16, getting the U18 boys finals, U18 girls finals, and people actually wanting me to referee their game, that kind of said a lot, where I said, hey, if I work hard, regardless of my age, gender, my height, I wasn't the tallest, people still wanted me to perform. And it kind of taught me that, performance can eliminate a lot of those barriers. So that was probably one of those, life pivotal moment changes that was very impressionable on me when I was in my teenage years, and kind of just carried through.
Indeed, and it's carried through all the way. Well, let's just say right now, ladies and gentlemen, not only is she one of the more recognizable referees in America right now, she also is a high quality litigation lawyer. She also is now owning a whole gym, at least, right? Is that the very least? At least like on that level?
Yeah, definitely on that level. So it's funny when people kind of figure out what the heck it is that I do. I kind of like to let people guess all the time, but yeah, no, me and my business partner Liz Lowe, we own Sports Fitness, which is a brick and mortar high intensity interval boutique strength training gym, and our focus is obviously on the community and the deadlift effect, which is teaching someone to be physically strong, transcends into mental strength, transcends into them being better and healthier, not just for themselves, but for their family and for their job and for, their basically their investment in themselves. But, we've gone digital before it was good to go digital, before COVID. And, we definitely mastered that. So it's been really cool. We do really high impact here in the Sarasota area, but we've been working with referees across the world, specifically female officials, and teaching them strength training. That, the reality is you're not gonna bulk up unless you're focusing not on just your macros, but your micros. So it's kind of reversing the fitness industry's mentality. We hate the fitness industry. It teaches you to hate yourself, and that's why you should invest in yourself. And we're the opposite. You should love on yourself and to invest in yourself. So yeah, it's been really cool. Got a couple of things. I like options. Let me put it that way. I like options.
Let me ask you, where did this love for the sport of soccer come for you at this whole young age with both of your wonderful parents, Guatemalan and Honduran, and you being born over in San Diego and then moving to Florida? You had mentioned previously before with your dad fixing helicopters in the Navy and now moving to Jacksonville, Florida. What for you was that first moment where you truly said, I love this sport of soccer?
That's a good question because you're gonna laugh at the reason why I started playing. So, culturally, soccer was just the sport. It's a sport for, Latinos. It's something that we just watched and we played pickup and my relatives came and we'd all play pickup 4v4 in the backyard and whatnot. But the reason I really started playing on a team was, when you're that young at like 6, 7 years old, and at the end of each game, you get gushers, right? Those little candies that were
Yeah,
like sweet or
throwback.
whatnot.
We know.
And
Child of the 90s,
uh,
we know about our good shit.
Good, good, good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gushers in the '90s, right? If you don't know, you don't know. And that's okay,
Yep.
So you missed a great era.
Mhm.
But my brother would get them at the end of his games and I'd ask him to share and he wouldn't share. So I said, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna go get my own. So I
Mm.
signed up for soccer and that's how I got my own gushers. So clearly when people tell me no, that's actually more of a motivation for me. But that's how I started playing. And then the love of the game, it was just something. I think it was just always that physical and mental challenge, being on a team, being able to work with others, all of the same mindset that, the reality is, who cares whether you're the goal scorer or the defender? At the end of the day, we all have to work together to get that W. And so for me, I really like that mental side of it, and just the healthy component of it, and being able to laugh. I laughed a lot when I played, to like the annoyance of teammates and other teams because it just you were having fun. When you were having fun, you were playing great. When I was stressed out, I sucked. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna have fun. And it was always that place you can go and you can escape the rest of the world. And just it's a very simple thing. It's a ball, it's a pitch, 90 minutes. The goal is to put the ball in the back of the net. It was just that ability to have fun, play, and it led to college scholarships. It led to refereeing. So it really led to kind of who I am today.
And what was your position on the field that got you to Palm Beach Atlantic University? And we will get into that about the two ACLs, unfortunately, but also leading to the transition that you are where you are today. What was your position on the field? And by the way, shout out to the year 1987, because that's when I was born. So if you're 87,
Yeah.
you're 87 too?
87, baby.
That's right.
May 14, 1987.
Hey, the best year all the way with it. I'm Capricorn season, so I'm already 35. January 16, right there with it. 87, the best year, no doubt about it. What was your position on the field in terms of
Yeah.
the one that you love to play and
Uh,
play to until like your final playing days?
yeah, everyone always wants to be that striker, that Alex Morgan, that Ronaldinho, that Christian Press, just score and all those accolades. And so I tried. I wasn't the fastest, so that was out.
Mhm.
And the winger, like play on the wing, like you have to, at the higher level, you have to have that insane repeat high intensity cardio to go back and forth. And it really kind of felt like it was a little bit more, you not a one trick pony, but you had your role. The part I loved playing, that got me my college scholarship was center midfield. I loved being right that classical number 10, right? I loved setting other people
Play,
up for success.
okay,
I
play.
love being able to I love being able to see the field and understand and help someone in defense and then get into the attack and create that slot that ball right through so that an attacker can run onto it, hit the ball in the back of the net and celebrate with them and support them in all what they do. So center midfield is where my heart is. It just allowed you to be involved in every single part of the play and still be responsible, right? On offense and defense. You can't
Mhm,
have an excuse. You lose the ball, you come back. And
mhm.
I preferred being the creative attacking center mid, but as I went into college, I became more of a defensive attacking mid, or sorry, defensive center mid. And I didn't mind that rollout as well as either, because then it allowed me to set up what we had a true number 10 on the college team. Very, very, silky with the ball, the whole thing. So I'm like, all right, she's our true attacking number 10. So I play the defensive side of it. And I just love being able to see the field and seeing the play 2, 3 plays ahead before the ball's played, right? So that you got that first phase of play, and the refereeing also helped me. I was like, okay, the ball should go here, 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 and then it should go here. So these people need to be moving in this thing. And from the being in the back, you can see that begin and that happen. And it was just a really cool feeling to see it play out like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, in college, I played the center defensive mid until my senior year, where our unfortunately sweeper tore her ACL, and I had to go play sweeper. And if anyone knows me, like we were not playing the high, defensive trap line. Like, sweet Lord, no. I did not have the speed to keep up with those attackers. So I just had to be smarter than them. I had to be able to anticipate the play and cut them off. And that was fun in and of itself, because you just had to be one step ahead of the person who's distributing the ball and be able to anticipate things before they occurred, which helps with the refereeing. You have to anticipate things before they happen to be in the right place. So I still love that, and I still love playing pickup. I had it's funny you say that, because after my last senior year, because I had torn my 2 ACLs, U.S. Soccer referee program asked me, please stop playing. We need you.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, because if I tear my ACL, I'm out for a year, and then there's no, it was that when they found me at 19, 20, the thought was to get me a FIFA, and you can't become a FIFA until you're 25 years old as a center referee. So, injuries, delayed the development process. So I actually stopped playing right my last year and just focused purely on refereeing. And it wasn't until fall of 2019 when I knew that the badge was going to be taken from me. I said, you know what, screw this. I started this game because I loved playing it. So I went back and I played some pickup co-ed adult soccer, and I loved every moment of it. Loved every moment of it. I just don't have time to play.
Well, first off, this shows that for people listening to this interview or watching this interview later on, you can see you do not have to get or pull answers out of Christina Unkel, because she provides all of this great energy, all of this realness in regards to just her love of the game and just her love and energy of life. For that, you went and sort of got into that Sergio Busquets, Desiree Scott type of like destroyer role with that. But who?
Oh, Desiree Scott destroyed people. I love watching her play. I was like, oh, that's a great challenge, but it's still foul. But she would rock people, and it was the funnest thing to watch.
And we will get into that all the way in regards to those great players that you've had a chance to at least officiate and be, of course, right down neutral, down the center with that. For you, as you see the likes of Carlos Valderrama growing up in our era, as well as CC, the great Brazilian playmaker. Before there was a Marta, it was CC doing her job as a number 10 with that. Obviously, Juan Romel Riquelme, seeing him rise when we were teenagers with that in terms of it. Who for you, being that creative number 10, was your favorite player to watch growing up in terms of this sport of football all the way?
Yeah, and I mean, God bless Martin. Hopefully, speedy recovery. She is our age, so it was kind of funny growing up, looking at her and saying like that's someone you wanted to impersonate because she was your age. She wasn't older than you. She was literally our age, but she was doing it at the international stage at such a young age that she was impressionable at that time period. And like you said, that's that player that has always, taken my breath away, and how they play and how they move. And so it is funny how a number of times I refereed her in the Brazilian team and NWSL, or I always have to be like, okay, it's just a player. And I'm like, it's not just a player. I'm like, it's just a player, right? This is the player I would watch on ESPN for, the Women's World Cup back in the days. And so that player and she plays with such passion, even right now, right? And I love the I would say advocacy piece that she's really taken. She's understood her platform and said, I'm paving a way, and I'm not going to just pave a way. I'm going to like bulldoze down a way for all women in sport, and specifically Brazilian women, and how the game is so big over there for them yet, right? They have so many obstacles and barriers and issues of access, and she's using her platform for that. So she inspired me when I was younger, watching her play and seeing her love for the game and how she just had so much fun. And she is fiery and she is fierce. And sometimes you're like, oh, okay, all right. As a referee side of it, you're like, all right, chill out, man, chill out. You're making my job hard. But but she was always someone who truly, truly fascinated me. Shannon Box was another player that was incredible to watch. I got the ability and the honor when I started on the international side. Before I was at FIFA, I was refereeing international soccer before I was FIFA, and refereeing her a couple of times. And she was intimidating. She really, really is intimidating. She just has this aura and this energy. And when she stepped on the field, it was like, let's get it done, right? And so
you're in my box, Miss Boss.
Yeah.
My box.
she gets stuck in tackles, and as a center referee, like you were in her or you were in the same space or zones as her, and so you're like you could just feel her energy. So you'd see her on TV, but when you're on that pitch with those athletes, you could just feel their energy, and they're bigger than life. So Shannon Box was another one who just completely impressed me, and obviously Michelle Akers, because right, no blood, no foul, like that girl got in. She just got
Hey.
stuck in plays. And I mean, mind you, you're kind of just like, the full 90 headgear, I think, was made for her. But, yeah, she put her body out there. So those are the three, that really, really inspired me from the women's side. And then, just the natural, Messi, right? Because they're so silky with the ball. And I think that's what it is. They all just love this game. The people that really attract me to it are those who know, like, the greatest showman, right? Like, this is the greatest show. They know that they have this skill and blessing from the Lord, that they are able to play and make a living from it and use it as a platform, but they're having so much fun while they're out there. And you can see that they're not like other typical professional athletes are like, whatever, I'm getting paid, I'm just going to show up. Like, they show up for the people, they show up for the fans and the audience, they show up to entertain. And they love every moment of it, and they don't take it for granted. So
Yeah.
those are the players that really draw my eyes and attract me.
You really, from your time being on TV, I have never heard you like even like raise your voice in an audio level that's like so like I'm gonna be angry like this, or even like to the someone comparison to the great Dr. Joe Manchick, and we're gonna get into that in terms of how intriguing it was, where you become the second at least referee in the U.S. to be that regular presence on TV after he became the presence that he was with Fox in the middle 2000s. But it's so funny where for you, I've never seen you get like which is a great would be great thing for sure on air, no doubt about it. But I've never seen you get that level on air with it. For you, referee, who on the field did you have to officiate where they were just getting a little too mouthy with you, and you had to let them know that you were about that realness all the way in terms of that true bottom of enduring spirit that you represent on a daily basis?
So it's kind of funny that you say that, because my style of officiating was always like, hey, I'm here, 22 players on the field, it's your pitch, it's not mine, I'm just here to make sure you guys don't break your legs, period. Like, the game is, no one's coming to watch the referees, no one's coming to watch me officiate. I got the best seat in the house, but I got to make sure you guys, like, you guys don't break your legs, right? So even like at one point, my husband was refereeing Barcelona Real Madrid in the Classico in Miami, and I just started Googling how much each of the athletes on the field cost. And he had over $50 million on the field. I'm like, all right, you don't let those guys break their legs. They're like basically breed like stock horses. But,
Mhm.
so my style was very like, hey, chill. Like, not that I'm going to be your best friend or whatever, but like, I'm reasonable, right? If you're chomping at me for any reason, right, on an off period when your emotion's way up here, I'm going to find you in an off period when it's a throw in or a sub and be like, hey, what's up? Like, what am I missing? You're clearly mouthing off at me. Like, am I missing something? Or, did you have a bad day? Like, what's going on? I kind of felt like therapy sometimes, and it throws the players off because they're like, actually, like, before the ball's played, so-and-so's elbowing me. And I'm like, all right, cool. Thanks for letting me know. I can't see everything at all times, especially plays like that. And so I kind of got this, and it's really cool when you get to the higher levels and it's just repeat players. Anytime you're in a professional sport, the players, the coaches, they know you, you should know them and they should know you. Let me clarify, because if you don't have that connection with them, then it's a very hard piece to manage them and understand, where they know where I'm coming from. I know where they're coming from. I know, pet peeves. I know, things that happen off the field that could impact in the field, right? So I would just be super chill and kind of like, hey, it is what it is. And my biggest thing is, don't disrespect me and I'll never disrespect you. So if you want to come at me and you want to yell about something, like, just keep it low. Like, we can have a quick professional discussion about it. Bang, 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 what's going on? Cool, I hear you. And take that in and actually listen to the players, right? And then some just do it out of frustration. You're like, and later they apologize. But whenever I had to, like, flip that switch, like, people knew, because they're like, oh, hot damn, like, she pissed. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get pissed. And the parts that only really ticked me off when I was officiating was when people were truly trying to hurt someone, right? Like, where they were just coming in, studs in, to just break someone's leg on purpose. Like, that stuff doesn't belong in the game, right? We love this game, maybe because I'm sensitive, because I tore my ACL twice, and the first time,
Mm.
that aggravated the situation with someone just coming in to hurt me and just studs right into the high knee when the ball's on the ground.
Is
That
that how
like
you
that's
is that how you saw your first ACL? Was someone coming in
no,
hard?
that's what started it. My senior year, I was playing against this team, and unfortunately, we were crushing them. And you could just the girl, like the videotape just shows, just came like 30 yards away and just launched full studs right into the outside of my left knee while I was dribbling on the right hand side, and just wiped me out. And so it wasn't even trying and attempting to play the ball. So like, and so then my knee got aggravated, and then eventually tore it my sophomore year of college, and then retore it again, and just played on it my senior year because I was like, I'm not redshirting. Like I got stuff to do. I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
but like that's the stuff that would make me lose it, was when people went out of their way to just hurt someone, or were completely disrespectful, whether it was a racist issue or even the sexist issues. Like those would drive me nuts, and more when it was a woman who was being sexist to me about refereeing. Like those
Oh,
things would tick me off. So you would know when I flip my switch, and a lot of the time I would just get like real angry face. I'm like, you're dead to me. You're dead to me. Don't come back. And then they usually come back and apologize, and then we make up. So
hey, I mean, they have to see that side of you because they may think that you are this nice, demure person who's on her scholarly flow, but then they got to know that you are truly about it if need be, and how you have to lay it down on that. And I'm glad you mentioned the safety thing because that is something that you really do
mm,
emphasize in your whole entire analyst work. And one of those moments, particularly, was just obviously a few weeks ago with the second leg between Liverpool and Inter Milan in round of 16 in the Champions League.
yeah,
And you had Alexis Sanchez have that high challenge on Thiago. And it was ironic enough because they're actually friendly, obviously, with each other from their times at Barcelona with it. And there was no malice with it. But
yeah,
it's something where he still went high on his whole knee despite getting the ball. And I don't think a lot of people understand that just because you get the ball doesn't mean that it's not a dangerous challenge, and that
yeah,
that's a challenge where yeah, his momentum and Jamie Carragher and Michael Richards were trying to have a civil discussion with you. That oh, he wasn't trying to be malicious. The fact is, you can't go into
mm,
another player's way like that when you could have caution to really not do that type of challenge. We don't want to see these
yeah.
that went crazy 80s and 90s. So when you get into that discussion, emphasizing the safety, do you feel a lot of fans and players miss that element in regards to not understanding how important that should be?
Yeah, they do, and I don't blame them fully for it because, right, I've had a training since for the past 34, so the past 24 years, my mindset has been trained on weekends in cold conference rooms with really bad tea. I bring my own tea to conferences. Um, it like if you a first grassroots new brand new referee, if they step out of a course, the only thing, at least back in the day, and with Florida now that I'm running it, the number one thing I want them to walk out with is, what is your role of primary responsibility? Safety of the players. That's our number one role, above all the laws, above everything, should be safety of the players. That's the reason we're there in the first place, right? I mean, and obviously to fight over throw-ins, which drive me nuts. I'm like, whoever picks up the ball first gets it. Like, if I don't know, whoever picks up the ball first gets it, right? Like, you put the effort in. But safety of the players. And it's funny you say that because, like, back in, I swear it was like 2008, 2009. And then the philosophies change, et cetera. In U.S. soccer, the coaches and the players, right, from the coaches from back in the day were like, hey, if the player gets studs up, but on all ball before, we don't want to foul. We're like, all right. So that was the direction we were getting from our bosses in the referee department. That lasted like a hot year, if that. Because remember, it was the first year of DA finals that they ever had. I was out there. It was all FIFA referees. It was really cool. And me and my friend Armando, we were grade 5 state referees just coming up. So we were working with FIFA referees. We're like, this is insane. So yeah, that we were applying that application. If you get all ball with studs, even if your studs are exposed, you're coming in at 120 miles per hour, we don't care. It's not a foul.
Yeah.
That entire tournament, by day 3, day 4, they're like, never mind. The coaches were like, we don't want that. Like, if they come in studs in, etc., like, we can't heal a broken leg. And so that old school mentality of saying, oh, that's just a hard fought ball, it's like, that's gone. That's past, right? And so we
Yep.
talk about the modern game. We talk about the modern referee. We talk about the modern, acceptance. And all of that stuff is historical. Like that playing, even though if you watch the Scottish Premier League, that still applies over there, man. They just kill each other. It's the funnest thing. Or yeah, or if you referee Caribbean ball, like they kill each other as well too. It's the best. My favorite games were Jamaica versus Haiti in the men's amateur league in the middle of Miami, and they would just fly and studs in, and I'd blow a whistle and they yell at me and they say that's a women's call, and I'm like, you just took his knee out, and they're like, he's still running, and I'm like, okay, I know the bar is on this. But that being said, like we've progressed from that, and the ones that I've realized who are really struggling with this concept, like Sanchez, he got the ball, and whenever someone uses the word intent, like, oh, he didn't intend. Intent isn't in our considerations. It doesn't matter what they intended. Like the only time it matters is if it's malicious, aka ball's not there and the person just coming in and studying them and the ball's 20 feet away. That's the only time intent comes into play. But when it's a fair challenge for the ball or when the ball is nearby, intent doesn't matter. So I'm going to create a GIF where like anytime an announcer or broadcaster or anyone says, oh, they don't have intent, I'm going to like cringe on it. Because like I need to pound that out from everyone's head. Intent doesn't matter unless the ball is not there.
Kawhi has to laugh at that, by the way. Kawhi Leonard has to laugh at that right there, because that gift would be so needed and necessary with that, so they can understand like what the importance is.
But you know what? Like that's kind of the whole point of why I'm doing this in the first place, right? So I believe your values don't matter unless you're willing to sacrifice something for them, right? Because if not, then they're just desires. They're not an actual true core value of yours. And a core value of mine is truly education and bridging the gap, right? So people like say we're super divided, and yes, we see a lot of division within not just our country, but the world, etc. But that's because people aren't listening and taking the time to educate themselves, right? And so the real, and especially here in the United States, soccer is still very young and early in its infancy, right? So if I go in other parts of the world, many of the people know the game, they know the laws, and the broadcast and analyst, can break them down pretty effortlessly because it's what they grew up with. It's the number one sport in their country. Here in the United States, soccer is respectively number 4, number 5, right? So the mainstream doesn't know the laws. They don't know, everyone says rules, but it's truly laws of the game. But in broadcasting world, they don't like to say laws, they say rules. So just I'm clarifying that. I fought that battle. I've lost in corporate HR role on that. But for me, it's just like, okay, the best way I can protect my community, the referee community, and not in the defense of them, but in the education component, is educating the viewers as to the actual proper application and perspective of how we apply the laws. Like, how is the law written? And then what do we use to apply it? And that's where my legal brain kind of comes in, because I'm like, the laws are like statutes. This is super boring. Sorry, guys. I'm like dorking out legally right now.
This is great right here, because
the laws are like
passion for it.
Yeah, the laws are like statutes. They're written by legislation, aka IFAB. And then the application is considerations, game clips, like saying, hey, in this, especially fouls, everyone's always into that. Like if you think of it like a barometer, right? From green is good to red is like, or black is like death, you're out of the game, right? Where does this play based on the context, based on the point of contact, the place of contact, speed, force, intensity, all of those things? Where does that fit within that spectrum? Is it on the green side, or is it on the black side or the red side, right? It could fit sometimes, and that's why we call it orange. It could fit between yellow and red, right? Where you're like, and then one little thing might push it one way or the other. Like it's basically a tipping point. So when you start thinking of it like that, that's really where everyone gets into the fight. And that's what I call case law, right? How we apply it and how we're trained and should be trained universally across the world, so we can have consistency, right? The word everyone loves to yell. It's like, anytime I ask a question, I'm like, what do you want? They're like, consistency. I'm like, I just now say it. I'm like, you're going to want consistency. Let's move on. Like, next thing, what's your second thing? But, and that's where it's funny, because I talk to people all the time and I go, my ultimate goal in this position as an analyst, laws of the game analyst, is to make my position irrelevant, in the sense that I have educated and trained enough broadcasts and journalists to be able to know the laws of the game that they don't need me anymore, that I'm irrelevant. And everyone's like, well, that's not great for job security. And I'm like, you know what? I can't cover every game. So I want all the games to be covered appropriately. I can't cover all the games. I don't have enough time. And then I'd probably get soccered out anyways. So, I've never watched more soccer in my life than I have since I took on this role. I was like, sweet Lord, I didn't even watch this much soccer when I was like an active FIFA. But, my role truly, truly is that. And I think the one thing I really love stepping into this role is The number of people who have such high commitment to their craft that are play-by-play analysts, color commentators, on set, everything, even the people from the back, from camera people to producers, everyone truly wants to know because they want to make sure they put the best product out there. And they want to make sure they educate the fans appropriately. And so a lot of these analysts and if I listen to them, even if I'm not on that show or whatnot, they're like, hey, send me any info or thoughts that you think. So like they'll break down a play and I'll be like, hey, this is good, tweak this language, and here we go. And I love the fact that they're asking for that information because I've probably ran into one, maybe two people in this entire world who's just like, I don't want to listen to you. I don't care. I think you're wrong. Just a closed mindset. And I'm like, no problem. The game's going to pass you. It's going to evolve beyond you. You're going to make a statement that's irrelevant. And there's some people who have this mindset, like thinking, I know it. And then they say it and they're so adamant about it. And then the world hates on them. And then they come back and they're like, I messed up. And I'm like, it's okay. Come back to the fold. So, it's been exciting. It's been exciting working with many of them. It's a different way of working with a team than I'm used to.
All those that want to do that nonsense towards giving you disparaging comments over that, they get this sound. They get the prices right, right there for all the way.
But you only need like one of those, so you're good. Because like 99, I'm not going to let that 1% ruin it. 99 are incredible. All the producers have been incredible. They're all just a growth mindset, and they're all about changing the game too. They're all about presenting soccer in this United States differently, right? And actually bringing and eliminating access and letting people like think about it. How many times were we able to watch Serie A, Scottish Premier League, anything in CONMEBOL, like Argentina, Chinese Federation, all in one flick and on one television? I'm like, no wonder I didn't watch before. It's just incredible, especially how Paramount has just gone in and taken the lion's share of games. It's just effortless now. You just need 3 apps, it feels like, and I won't name all 3 of them that you need, but you can watch anything now.
I see that plug for Paramount. You get another ding sound for that smooth plug all the way with that. We are with Christina Unkel here, this whole Renaissance woman and tremendous referee with this. Before we get into that full Renaissance woman schedule of yours, your protection of referees was evident in a whole special Twitter exchange that you had with none other than ESPN illuminary and a colleague in my whole field, and Mina Kimes, back on my birthday, ironically enough, January 16th, when this went down in its whole major way. And of course, it was that whole tweet where you had a response to her when she said, they say on social media is dividing us, but I see an entire timeline coming together for a common cause, hating on refs. This is what healing looks like. And Christina went and delivered that response to her, saying, quote, if healing for others is abuse for others, explain why we are at a referee shortage in all the sports and why parents/fans think it's acceptable to yell at the youth/adults who are officiating their kids' games. Got to switch the mindset of our sports culture. All I can say after that, when you gave that comment there to Mina Kimes, she went and just had the Funkmaster Flex sound right there. The Funkmaster Flex sound in a major way. And for those that don't know, Funkmaster Flex, a very famous DJ who has those explosion sounds whenever it's a great comment or great line being said or a great song with that. That was your response there towards her. Has she ever responded like back to you over that comment? Have you at least had any conversations with her with that? And what for you was that impetus where you felt, hey, I need to protect referees in terms of this image? Why do we have to have these negative connotations placed on referees? Your whole thoughts about that exchange, Ms. Unkel.
Yeah. No, and I mean, first of all, on record, Mina is an incredible analyst, like switching the game, where we're going, and breaking down sports is freaking brilliant and funny. And so like for when I saw that, like I got what she was trying to do in the sense it's just a joke. It's a quip, right? Like comedians, etc. Like whatever. Mm-hmm. But the thing that really hits me, and probably because I'm super sensitive to it, especially right now, is like I'm working on different campaigns to eliminate referee abuse. And that's the verbal abuse at the grassroots level. Like I was just at an event, which was really from U13 to U17. So the 3rd level of soccer in the state of Florida. And the number of, players and coaches that had to be dealt, I mean, sorry, parents and coaches that had to be dealt with that were yelling at minors who were refereeing their game just blew my mind. And the number of, we just had an official 2 weeks ago say, hey, I'm hanging it up. I've refereed for 15 years. Very good, consistent referee, great for the game on the lower levels where we would need them because of the number of games. And he goes, that person was just a straw that broke the camel's back. Like, why am I coming and working and spending my time? And I mean, we make some money, but we don't make, groundbreaking money to be in a toxic environment and abused by these people. Like, nobody goes into anyone else's workplace, or they shouldn't. I mean, there's laws to protect it, and throw things at people that, verbally abuse them and yell at them and scream at them, that tell them they're idiots and that they're dumb and they don't know what they're doing, that call them cheats by saying, oh, you're throwing this game for the other team, how much are they paying you? That's an integrity issue. That's calling that person to cheat. Like, when earlier when you said what flips your switch, the one thing that would flip my switch is someone would challenge my integrity. You can tell me I'm a bad referee, but you tell me that I'm a cheat, that's out, because then you're attacking my core value. But so she's an incredible person. I knew what she was trying to get at. The number of laughs and likes on it just blew my mind, because everyone's like, we have a position, whether one is willing to accept it or not. And this is why I love the Spider-Man quote, right? With great power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. And when we step, and it still blows my mind that the sports world has such an influence over politics, it has such an influence over, et cetera. It is the power of sport, its ability to have a platform to change culture, to change mindset. And our sports mindset, as you probably saw yesterday, I just got triggered in the Celtics Rangers game yesterday by broken bottles of glass being thrown at the goalkeeper, for crying out loud. Is and not that it's fair for anyone, but I'm like, if we can't protect, our $1 million coaches and our $1 million athletes, sure as heck they're not protecting the referees, right? Like, so, and it's a whole thing. It's our whole referee, it's our whole football ecosystem that, and it's not just soccer, it's every sport, where those of us that are in powers of influence making jokes at the expense of saying, like, let's do referee abuse, why not, let's continue, like, that only compounds and aggravates the situation of why we have a referee crisis in all sports, why we don't have, I mean, it's well documented. And now it's kind of like global warming, right? We're already beyond the point of it being a crisis. It's just a reality of, can we ever recover, and can we ever come back to service the youth games and the adult games on the weekly basis? Is like, these organizations are canceling because the third team, which is the referee team, if you don't have a full team, you can't have a game. And so now the beautiful game that I love, that I grew up, that taught me so many lessons as a child, kids aren't able to play on the weekends because there's just not enough referees. But it starts from the top down and it trickles. And so everyone's like, oh, that was just a professional sport. I go, no, that sets the mindset of people watching, right? So if you're watching it, it's subconscious training for you, and that you think it's okay to do that on the weekend. So we really need people who champion our cause. Everyone's like, oh, it's not sexy to defend the referees. No, it's not. But you know what? How about we just defend humanity and dignity, for crying out loud? And so that's kind of the component I got to. And I mean, no, I mean, Mina probably has like 1 million people who Twitter, like, go back at her. And I mean, some of the people said comments to her are disparaging, and that's not appropriate either. So we haven't had that exchange or any kind of a conversation. I mean, I'm open to conversations with these people who have influence to work with me on the 13 campaign to say, how do we flip the sports mindset? And like I said, it's not one sport, it's not one part of the country, it's not one federation, it's not one club, it's universal and it's throughout, and it's systemic now. We've institutionalized it, especially in soccer, saying it's okay to physically throw things, verbally, it's okay to verbally abuse people. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to turn it overnight, but we need to start somewhere by not acting. We're, basically accepting that this is okay behavior. And it's just not. We're going to lose people to this sport, and the sport's too good of a game to lose people to.
Yep. And you were alluding to what happened to Celtic goalkeeper Joe Hart, who has had quite a fascinating journey. And yes, people, Joe Hart is the Celtic goalkeeper. For those that were wondering where Joe Hart was at this whole stage of his career. But on just a whole more uptick of a note right there, you got to get the round of applause, because you mentioned in regards to having enough youth referees, but you being a youth referee since the age of 10 and being the whole prodigy that you were, to be able at age 21 to be a referee for the WPS when that was around with that. I mean, you literally are a whole prodigy in this whole referee profession with that. Where for you getting that sense right there, and you mentioned, of course, when you had this really funny moment when you were dealing with with Florida's head referee honcho, with referee head honcho Joe, when you were yelling at him during a game,
Yeah.
and how that led to him knowing about you being a referee. Did you know of him like before that whole moment, and how that worked to be to lay the groundwork of you going in that whole fast track from that whole stage of just playing right there to being a whole prodigy referee?
No, so it's funny because like every time like my refereeing career either started or took off was me yelling at the referees. So am I sounding like a hypocrite, like bashing this whole yell at the referees? And I was the one, yes, but you can evolve, you can, get a better mindset and you can move forward. So you can, everyone who does that, you can still grow, right? So that's why I still Bleav that we can change people. Because I myself am getting changed, right? I will never yell at my daughter's game at the referee. And it was just kind of funny because I was playing collegiate ball, and when I was yelling at him, I remember this distinctively. I was yelling, and he was an older gentleman, right? We were a D2 women's Christian liberal arts school. Played as like a not fully in the Sunshine Conference, like whatever affiliated here in Florida. So, and
Shout out to
we were
Palm Beach
good. We were
Atlantic.
okay.
Shout out to Palm
Yeah,
Beach Atlantic.
Palm Beach Atlantic, West Palm Beach, great place, great school. And the only reason I was yelling at him was because another thing that like just unfair stuff, right? So I know we were just a women's game, right? And some referees come into women's games and just go through the mechanics, right? And this gentleman, I mean, mind you, I think he was like in his 50s or his 60s. So like the fact that he was even on the game and running, like kudos to him now when I look back at it. But the man was in the center circle and the play was a penalty kick scenario. And I'm looking back like, there is no way in heck you're able to see that. You're like 60, 70 yards away. Like, so those are the things that would kind of, and that's where I would use laws of the game. I'm like, you can't see that. You don't have the angle. You're 70 yards away. You need to put more effort into this game. You need to actually like give a, care. And that's kind of funny enough while I was starting to yell at him. And then I remember he blew the whistle from the center and like pointed at me and made me walk to him. He's a very commanding, has a very strong presence about him. He's the FIFA AR for the United States. And it's just funny. I remember that. And then like I get to him like all like hot and angry, and he's just like, "Hey, do you referee?" Like in like this really simple manner. And I'm like, "Yeah, why does it matter?" Like I was just like so upset because he was in the center circle. And
And
that's really funny.
that's how he knew that you were actually a referee. Referee.
Yeah. And so that's how we knew. And it was funny because from that standpoint, I got an email the next day inviting me to ODP Internationals that was down in the Fort Lauderdale area. I had no idea. I was 18, 19. If you asked me back in the day what my grade was as a referee, because we have grades, I would have said I'm like 12, I'm in high school, or I'm a freshman in college. Like I had no idea any of that stuff. So what you don't know, you don't know. And so that's kind of the beauty and the excitement that, I and, my husband and others that are at our level now is really identifying officials early on, and even those who may not have been identified but who have matured at a later time period, who can perform and excel at that game. So it's us giving back in the same way that someone did for me. My mantra right now in life is, I need to be the person that I needed when I was a referee coming up, right? There was a lot of things that were missing that I needed to perform and to be at the highest level that either I had to do for myself or I just didn't know. So, that kind of stuff, gets me, fuels me. I was at what they call Commissioner's Cup here in FYSA, Florida Youth Soccer, this weekend, popping in and out, and to see the young referees and to, I had an opening statement with them before they set out for the first games of the tournament. And my only statement one of my statements to them was, like, thanks for coming in the first place. This is these kids' World Cup. It's either this or not. And this is their World Cup. Treat it like a World Cup. And this is also your road to being selected to represent Florida at the youth summer tournaments. And you can see a lot of their eyes just open up, being like, wait, we can represent Florida? Like, there's a path. And I'm like, I'm going to use the word referee career. You're going to laugh because many of you guys are just doing it for the money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, there's so much opportunity in sport. And, the quicker I can teach people that early on, the quicker we can keep them in the game, and we can identify those referees at a younger age, where I say, once they drink the Kool-Aid, they can't go back. So I'm trying to find people to drink the Kool-Aid, basically.
And that's the thing, because you were able to drink that Kool-Aid from age 10 at such that age, but yet still playing soccer and then just being a normal kid, just growing up in
Yeah.
whole country with that. What was your schedule? Because you said you were getting paid and getting that independence at an early age. Like, when was the first game that you got paid, and how was that schedule for you going from then before high school, junior high school to high school? Were you still refereeing like during your high school time while you were also playing in high
Yeah.
school?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is actually one of the best jobs for kids, especially those who are playing sport. Because like if I had practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays, on Monday and Wednesday, you would find me at the local recreational club or the semi-competitive refereeing those games and making 50, $60 back in the day. Now you can do like an MLS next game and make $100 refereeing an under 17. I'm about to go get my recertification and go out there, like $100 for 70 minutes. Like sign
Wow.
me up, right? But like back in the day, that I would just basically, if I had time, I would plug in refereeing whenever I wasn't playing, whether that was a tournament or a weekend, etc. And then I carried it on in college because, like you said, in high school, I'd be playing high school soccer, it'd be in the fall. We only played during the weekdays. I had my weekends. Competitive would take a break. We'd play high school soccer, and then I'd referee on the weekends and I'd do tournaments. And then in college, I've never had a real job. Like I've always struggled with a real job, even my legal jobs. Like I was not a normal you know, brand new lawyer who sat at her chair from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Like that world didn't work. Tried it. It was people were like, yeah, this ain't working. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like you can find me. I'm gonna be on the other side of the world. I'll be working in China while you're sleeping, and then you'll get my work product the next day. But like it just allowed me to be able to continue playing sport and make money without saying, hey, I need to be at a shift between 3 to 7, doing whatever it is, like a quick fast food or working at the mall or something like that. Like instead, I was running around, I was meeting people, I was working with adults, like right out of the gate, right? When you're young, you're working with adults. You're a minor working with adults and learning from them and learning what not to do as well as to what to do, right? So it made you have to mature really, really quickly. You had to worry about your own schedule, and email just came out crazy, right? Email just came out. So like you had to respond to your signer. And, really God bless my parents for I didn't really ask them. I just kind of told them. I'm like, hey, I got to be at the fields at like 6 o'clock for a kickoff for an under six game. I need to be at the field by 5:30, and they just made it work. And so kudos to them. Those people have security in my life. For the rest, I owe them so much because I didn't really ask. I told, and they believed in the American dream, and they're like, well, this is part of Christina's American dream of let me support her.
So they never had a whole trying to steer you into the direction of like want to be doctor, or the route of you being like the lawyer that you were. That was something where they were like, "Hey, we this is her passion with this in terms of not
Yeah.
playing soccer, but doing this in the fact that she's also earning her own money doing that." That they never tried to steer you away from that, or be like skeptical of it at all.
No, that's kind of where their family, their parents made a decision. They were born in another country to say, "Hey, let's come to America, and give my children an opportunity," right? And that was ingrained in them that, and specifically education. If you could, no one can take your education away from you. That's no one can tear up your degree. No one can get rid of that, right? So. For them, they really believe that you can be anyone you wanted to be, and the beauty of them having that mindset and telling me that all the time, regardless of my culture, that women shouldn't be, heads of households, regardless of, my age and my background and obstacles and barriers. One, probably because they didn't realize that stuff existed either. I was super ignorant growing up, and I love that ignorance because ignorance is bliss, because I didn't know that there was a ceiling. I didn't look and say, oh, my goal can only be this high because there's institutionalized barriers or glass ceilings. There was no glass ceilings in my world. Whatever I wanted to achieve, I could do, and they taught me that, and they supported everything I did like that. And so I'm incredibly thankful for that. And the reason I decided to become an attorney back in the day is just my mom worked like 3 or 4 jobs to put me through school, et cetera, to give me those better opportunities in life. And she one of the persons she worked for, she was a secretary for a lawyer for Lee Memorial down here, who's the attorney for the entire hospital. And the way this lady carried herself, very respectful to others, servant leadership mindsets, brilliant. She was funny enough, they said she was actually very calm demeanor. And when she talked, everyone stopped and listened. regardless, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, I don't know what that lady does, but I want to be her. All right. I want to be her where, she listens to people and she takes in the information and she's reflective and thoughtful about it. And then when she does speak, it's quality, right? It's not about quantity, it's about quality. And my mom was like, "Oh, she's a lawyer." I'm like, "Cool, I'll be a lawyer." And I had no idea what that meant. So thankfully, that worked out because those skills and abilities and the ability to advocate for others has kind of become just a central core theme of my life, regardless of what area or industry I'm working in.
And what age was that where you got the impetus of being a lawyer right there? That was that, you know,
Oh, that would have been at probably around the same time I started refereeing, like 11, 12.
perfect, perfect. I want to ask just a few more things because we have to wrap this up there, and we can definitely have it a whole nother time with that. First, your background right now. You got the leads flat right there in terms of
Well,
your whole love with that as well. Is that an RBG little bobblehead on the right side?
yeah, it is.
Like those two loves right there. In terms of both the Leeds love, did that come before Marcelo Bielsa? Was it because Marcelo Bielsa? And then the RBG love right there.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, I did not become a Leeds fan because Jesse Marsh is there. Okay. So I've known Jesse back in the MLS days, funny enough. And everyone's like, oh, every American is now a Leeds fan. So that's kind of the funny part. But it was because of Marcelo. It's because of the community. It's because of this really big support of giving back to their own community and culture. And so I became a Leeds fan because a good friend of mine here that, I hang out with him and his dad are a huge Leeds supporter, and I've never been a supporter of a team. I'm not allowed to be. I'm a referee, right? The chances of me refereeing a team, although the chance of me refereeing a Premier League team is very, very low. So probably 1%. So they're huge fans, and I was like, you know what? Like, I want to become a fan of someone. So I learned about their culture and the community, and then my friend put a scarf in behind me, and then Marcelo here to my right, to your left, and it took off. The president of Leeds, Andre, saw it in some type of a social media thing I did with Kate, and it just kind of took off from there. And it's been great to see them watch. It's been great to see their rise. It's been great to see their struggle. Others wouldn't say that. I maybe look at it more from. I'm also a worse person to watch Leeds game with because the poor gentleman sitting next to me in the director's box in the Spurs game. I was over there. He was like, "Hey, do you think that's a foul?" I go, and it was 4 Leeds. And I'm like, no, it wasn't a foul because this, and he's like, oh, come on. I'm like, I can't look at a game, even for someone I'm supporting, in a very one-sided way. I have to look at everything. So, the Leeds fans came of that bout. It's been fun. They're a fun team. I call it cocaine football when they played under Marcelo, which is like attack, 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 pressure, pressure, pressure. So you were never really bored necessarily. It was a different style, a little bit more different than Barcelona, which is a team that I enjoyed. And now under Xavi again, and we're playing like we used to.
Hey,
So yeah, that's where all that energy and passions come from. But the organization's been great. Ellen Road was incredible. That was my first time in England in February, and to see the game against Man U and Spurs was incredible. And going to RBG, I mean, that's just that's an OG right there, right? So one of her sayings that I really love, and it kind of goes back to people who impress me, is lead in a way that causes others to follow, right? So maybe like you say, hey, you're not loud and you're not screaming, you're not yelling at people. Well, I mean, I've never seen that really be that productive. And then you're right, like in the TV world, it might be sensational, it might be fun, but at the same time, like I want to lead in a way that others, it was servant leadership style, right? That, I ask only because I would do as well, or I am doing it next to you, or I'm learning from you. And I want to lead in a way that doesn't disparage or, basically push people aside, or, this world is saying everyone's either far left or far right or extreme. Like the reality is the majority of us are in the middle, right? And, there's one thing that pushes us left or right to a little bit in the sense of whatever it is, right? Not just politics, but anything. And so, when you lead in a way that gets others to understand your side and you listen to them, that's, what RBG really meant. And I always loved her quote when they asked her when will it be enough? How many, US Supreme Court justices will it be enough on the bench? And she goes, when there are 9. And they're laughing. And, people take that and saying, oh, women, feminists just want to eliminate men. I'm like, no. Like we're only stronger when we use all of our humanity, regardless of your identification or profile. Who cares? If you get the job done, you get the job done, right? But I like that quote because it really proves kind of to that point is we're flipping the mindset again, right? Where, we've always had 9 men on the Supreme Court. No one said that was inappropriate. inappropriate, right?
Yep.
And it's because that's how we wrote the laws, and that's how we wrote the rules, or that's how we wrote the rules. But now it's time to change the rules, but not just change them saying, okay, it's now women's time to have everything. We need to change it where everyone gets to say in what's happening, from whether it's race, gender identification, disability, etc. Like everyone should be at that table. I should look around. And so I'm very, very, tuned into that. So when I see certain things and I look and I'm like, can you not get even on the optics? Like, how
Mhm.
can you not sprinkle in something, for crying out loud? It blows my mind. And it just comes back to the core value of the education piece, right? What you don't know, you don't know. And that's a nice way to say you're kind of ignorant. But, if, and some people haven't walked in our shoes, right? They don't know what it feels like to be, a Hispanic, Latina, in the corporate, in the legal world, in litigation, where I wouldn't really litigate against minorities, let alone minority women, right? And what it needs to take, that we have allyship and not just mentoring, but sponsoring and bringing others up and creating it. And yes, you got to be qualified, but there's plenty of qualified people out there. And that's why the other day when we had our Supreme Court hearing, I was like, how can this country not be excited? Whether you like or you don't, for whatever values or whatever, et cetera. But how can we not be excited that we're now tapping into an entire set of skills and talents that we historically have never tapped into and looked at? And there is more than enough qualified individuals. And I'm excited about that.
And Christina, she's the most qualified person.
Oh, she's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, Ketanji
Yeah.
Jackson, and I may be biased also Thurgood Marshall and me and Black, but I feel like they're the two most qualified people in NRBG like ever. But
Yeah, because that's why people say, like, they're like, even if you didn't like Judge Amy, like for whatever reason, like she's a brilliant woman. Like, right, she's just brilliant. Like I was like, those people that should be there should just be ridiculously brilliant. And they've all been brilliant. And so I'm like, okay, that's cool.
last time you say that, I can't. Amy Coney Barrett, she probably has seen me in terms of stuff like that, but that's because of political leanings near or there with that. But that's for another time with that. To wrap up, sorry to the great Sir Ted, the great Sir Ted Uncle. I don't have time for him. We'll have time for the great Sir, your husband, for that, as well as our great colleague Kate Abdo. Even though she'll probably get at me because I'm giving Man City more love than her United.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you know how Kate keeps it real like that. Like
She keeps it real.
Kate keeps it very Manchester all the way. Our good colleague and friend Kate Abdo. But that's for another time with that to close. I was gonna ask you, as another great part of your background, your wonderful background there. I don't know, in terms of that painting, is that a Frida Kahlo painting that you have at the back, where it's always been so great whenever you are remote at home and you're able to do a segment? What is that wonderful painting in the back of you, in between that Leafs flag and that RBG bobblehead?
Yeah, no, I love that you asked that because, just knowing that I call it a talking head on TV. I said, how can I use the space behind me to support artists as well as to support missions and kind of what they're doing. And so, the individual, and I don't want to completely ruin her name, but it was painted by a friend of mine, Liz Silvers, who's an incredible artist. And this painting in and of itself, and I want to get her name correct, is Yalitza Aparicio Martinez. Which, if you don't know her, you may not know her, but she's an incredible woman. She represents in UNESCO for a Goodwill Ambassador, specifically for Mexican indigenous people. She's the first ever Mexican indigenous person to win an Oscar for Best Actress. She really advocates for indigenous, we always talk about, the indigenous side of the world really has no representation and advocacy. And now you have indigenous and Mexican put together. She's recognized by Time Magazine as one of the top 100 most influential people in the world back in 2019. And, her space, she's doing good things for people who aren't, maybe familiar with it, but she's really paving a way. So anytime you see an art piece behind me, it's usually representative and symbolic of something. And the pieces get sold, and then it goes back to a nonprofit selected by that artist. So Liz selected a nonprofit, which is for Hispanic Latinos. It's an art nonprofit. So anytime you see something and it revolves, aside from RBG, that was just a private commission. But anytime you see an art piece behind me, I'm working with this other group that focuses on world issues, and the pieces I picked were sports and disability, and those pieces will go behind me. It's all to fundraise for a nonprofit and also to bring awareness. So if I could use a space behind me to make people look, why not? Although it is funny because Nico Cantor, he posted, he was like, that looks a lot like Jenny Chu. And then I'm like, oh my goodness.
Wait, where? Nico? Nico.
No, it does. There's photos. Like you put Jenny Chu. Yeah, you put Jenny Chu next to Yalitza, and they look very, very close. And I mean, Jenny Chu's Mexican, so it's the look of it is very almost on point. So they're like, "Why does Christina have a photo of Jenny Chu behind her?" And I'm like, "That's actually pretty funny." So
Does Jenny agree with that doppelganger comparison? Because I can't.
that's a good question. I haven't asked her. I
I,
haven't asked her.
I would love to see her opinion because I think she would tell
Yeah.
Nico the 2020 lens crafters is needed right there. I can't see it with Yulitza. I didn't even know that was actually Yulitza Aparicio, as you said right there. It is
Yeah.
really strikingly her with that. But Jenny,
Yeah.
I would love to see her opinion on that. So Jenny, if you're watching this later, we want to see your opinion on if you think that great painting of Yulitza Aparicio is a similar resemblance of you with that. I kind of disagree on it, but Christina and Nico may overrule you on that as a majority.
Yeah, I think they're both incredibly gorgeous women, inside as well as outside. So I was like, it's not a bad compliment, Jenny. But it's up to her. So
Well, just incredible spirit that you are, and it really speaks towards not only humanity, that Christian sense in you, whether you're Christian or not or whatnot, but really that sense in terms of having that Jesus type role with that. You get a round of applause, Christina. We gotta wrap it up with you. But thank you so much for having this wonderful time. The great Christina Unkel right here with me on Overall Overtime here. We thank you so much, Christina, and may you have a great rest of your busy day, considering the Renaissance woman that you are. And also, if you want to plug in anything that's in regards to any sponsor stuff or any app stuff that you want to plug in at the end here.
just I kind of always say is invest in yourself physically, and it'll transcend into mental strength. And so whatever you choose and you decide that be really, 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 you can't help anyone in your life unless you're able to support yourself both physically and mentally. So that kind of a thing, we really believe in that there with the Scorch Fitness app, as well as it. So just even follow along just to listen to my business partner Liz Lowe impart, I call them truth bombs, wisdom, about not you hating yourself, but you loving yourself enough to invest in your. So check out Sports Fitness. Check out the Deadlift Effect programs if you're a referee. That goes for referee programs. See the different spaces of the people I'm working with, right? Floor soccer referees. There's a lot of really, really, really cool things coming down, and I'm excited to be able to invest a little bit more time into those and get those things to blow up.
Make sure you look into that, people, as well as Christina Unkel on both her Twitter, Instagram accounts, and whenever she is back for the Champions League and anything else with CBS Sports, The Athletic, with all over the many quality places that she is at, whether Guardian, doesn't matter, just find and look for her on the social media with that. All right, we got to get out of here. Overall Overtime. Thank you for listening, and see you all next time. Goodbye.